90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. Our special guest is Charlynne Bodie, and she is a life coach and has also worked as a former press officer for the White House. She's produced movies in Hollywood and TV programs as well, and she's going to talk about how to protect and pursue your ideas, your entrepreneurial ideas, your other aspirations, and how to not to be afraid to take that chance and pursue those ideas. And Charlynne, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Thanks so much for having me, Ken.
And I hope people can learn from your success and through your encouragement to pursue their ideas. Many people do have ideas for, let's say, a product, a song, maybe a book or a play or a business, and I hope you can give them guidance and encouragement. So Let's start. If they have some type of passion, as you have had, what are some of the first steps? What can they, how to take their idea to protect it and pursue their dream?
Well, if it's in the arts world, Ken, my sister and me, are both, people that have worked in the arts field. I'm kind of in front of the camera person. So I always had ideas for television shows that I wanted to do with my sister. And that's what we did in Hollywood together. But then she's a screenwriter. So she's got intellectual properties on the film side, but she's also a songwriter. And I'm also a book author. So, we sat down as sisters and we listed out the different types of projects we wanted to do creatively. And we thought about it, and we found out that the state of Colorado, where we live, has something called COLA, or Colorado Lawyers for the Arts. And as I, started looking around, talking to different friends in the creative industry, found out that a lot of other states had Lawyers for the Arts groups. So I would tell your listeners, jot down the types of projects they want to do. Is it a book? Is it a song? Is it a screenplay? Is it a television show? Really consider getting advice from an arts lawyer in your state, because more than half of the U.S. states have groups for lawyers just for the arts.
And there also may be websites run by law firms in those areas offering a lot of different free information. There are, and probably some books out there, perhaps like yours we'll talk about later, that give people ideas on pursuing and protecting their ideas. And there are groups, I know there are Lawyers for the Arts in Manhattan and many other places that will help people protect their ideas and make the connections they need to do to pursue their dream in the arts.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Ken. And especially New York is such an artsy place, of course. So we absolutely know that exists in the state of New York. But suppose your state does not have a group for the lawyers, then I would call the bar association in your state. And I am absolutely sure they will point you in the right direction.
Yes, they do have lawyers who work on pro bono projects for free or very low fee. They might have seminars giving general information about how to protect your ideas and, give you some limited advice along the way to get you started. So what are some other ways that someone can take their dream and carry it the next step?
Well, I think once you find out whether your state or your community has perhaps like a creative lawyers group, my sister and I sat down with a numerous amount of lawyers. And that would be the next step. If you call the bar association, they say, oh, yes, this law firm likes to do charitable work for the arts, or this particular lawyer we know loves to do work for the arts. That's great. Whether you have a legal group just for the arts or not, I'm sure there are lawyers in every state that want to help. But once you find that out, that they do exist, then the next step would be, Ken, seeing when the next, so to speak, dog and pony show is, where you can sit down and talk with the lawyers. And you may, if that does not exist, you may have to call and start visiting with specific lawyers to make the right fit for your project. And that was the next step that my sister and I took. And boy, were we pleasantly surprised by all just the special gifts that all the lawyers in Colorado had. And we knew that we wanted to pick two that would work with us on creating a production company. That's something else to think about too, Ken, because if you're artists like my sister and I are, but we're two separate entities, but we want to work together, then you need to consider the fact that you might need two different types of lawyers like we did to create a production company.
Also, the bar associations may have seminars, maybe geared to lawyers, but they may let you attend and perhaps at a lower fee, so you can try to pick up what you can about protecting your ideas during the creative process.
Yeah,
sort
I
of
agree.
A course for lawyers, and maybe it's easy enough to understand for yourself. And you might meet lawyers there who are willing to give you some advice, or maybe the right lawyer for you. What did you do? What can people do to further the creative process? Do they start outlining their work? Do they, to try to build a jewelry collection or a fashion collection or a script or a book project?
Yeah, I would start for sure with an outline. If you're talking about a book, you want to look at the material that you're going to be working on. When we put together our production company, we chose a book and music lawyer. We actually found a lawyer who handles books and music, which we needed. Well, we also found a Hollywood lawyer that deals with television and film. And we asked the two lawyers if they would create our company together. But before we did that, to make the best use of time, because lawyers often work by billable hours, so we put together an outline and a vision for the company that my sister and I created. And that saved a lot of time, so that when those two gentlemen came together, they agreed to work together to create this family-owned business that would be a production company. And boy, oh boy, was that fun, because we really had our vision on paper, Ken, and that let both lawyers split the difference. They could see what was television and film very clearly by looking at our plan on paper, and they could see what I wanted to write with regard to books and where the songwriting came in for the other book and music lawyer.
Okay. And are there ways that someone can register their artwork or their book or to protect the idea so they can be sure no one will steal it from them?
Yeah. And, that's the good point about having like a music attorney. The music attorney can help you with that side of the shop, so to speak. But we also had, Jim also handled the book stuff for me as well, because I write books. So we let, him talk about that. We talked about getting the right numbers and getting the registrations for the books, but also all that for the music. On the TV film side, Ken, we found out that my sister decided, because we're so close to LA and Denver, that she would register with the Writers Guild on the West Coast. Now, everything is set up by guilds and unions in the entertainment industry. So every, particular job you can think of has their own union. And so she's a writer. So she wanted to join the Writers Union, otherwise known as the WGA, the Writers Guild of America. So all of her screenplays have been registered, which means if anyone ever tried to say, oh, I had that idea, they could check it with their records and say, actually, Charlynne Bodie wrote this on such a date, and she registered with us on this timeline. And so that really helps you in court later if someone tries to steal an idea from you.
So whatever your idea is, you've going to register it so you can show that you came up with that idea or a similar idea first before the other
Absolutely.
one had their $1 million deal.
Absolutely. I had someone try to steal, literally verbatim ideas that were out of my coaching book. And because I had a book lawyer, oh my goodness, did they get a snappy letter immediately. As soon as this person stole written, copied material, copyrighted material out of my book and tried to do an ad campaign with it in Denver, my legal eagle jumped on that right away and said, oh, here's a letter. We'd happily see you in court if you want to go through with that ad campaign because you stole it. You stole it from a business conference. And what you didn't know is that Charlynne Bodie had that copyrighted, and I'm her lawyer, and I'll see you in court.
So you want to send out that cease and desist letter. Perhaps you're going to have a lawyer do it for you. And if you're on the other end, if you get one of those letters, but you registered your idea first, you want to, again, have a lawyer. Don't be intimidated. Have your lawyer respond to their lawyer with the proof that it was your idea first.
Absolutely. And what he had put in that letter for me in my situation, Ken, was I think something like 3 or 4 hours to pull the whole ad campaign that was like a 6-figure amount that this person had used. They had bought this ad campaign using my material without my permission. And they had 3 hours to cease and desist. And I remember the person that stole from me calling me on the phone, apologizing, and then calling my lawyer saying, I'm scrapping the whole campaign. And they were crying because it cost so much money.
Right. I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking about protecting and pursuing your ideas. Our guest is Charlynne Bodie. As you've heard, she's a Hollywood producer and a TV host and a former White House press officer. And she's also now a life coach, helping people to pursue their ideas and also to protect their ideas. And whichever side you're on, if you want to keep people from stealing your ideas, and if you think someone is stealing your idea, your lawyer can send a letter, and maybe you can work out some agreement to give them a limited use for the right amount of compensation. And if you're being accused of stealing and you were not the first person, you just want to say I'm sorry and not get in further legal jeopardy. I know as part of and you're listening, I just want to remind everyone you're listening to Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. If you missed any portion of the program, you want to tell someone else about it, just go to nccradio.org. I know that you also now coach people about how to grow their ideas, how to protect their ideas. Tell us about some of the process.
Well, one of the things I like to do with clients, Ken, is have them get a visual picture first of what they're thinking about for what I call an extreme dream. A lot of my clients come to me with things that have been daunting to them, things that look impossible, and we see what looks impossible, we turn it into possible. We turn it into something that comes to fruition. So the first thing I do with people is try to get them to visualize on just a piece of cardboard, poster board, any color they want. And I say, hey, let's sit down and visualize together what you want to do. And I give them a couple hours to take a whole stack of magazines, as many as they can get, to cut pictures out, to get a vision or a dream board, to look at the visual place of where they want to go or what they want to be first. And then we take that broad brush stroke and we put it into the vision grid that I've created that helps people go from where they are right now, Ken, to the next 5 years in one glance on one sheet of paper. And it looks at all 3 parts of them, body, soul, and spirit. What I call the anatomy of any person's vision.
And do you then try to help them prioritize which of their ideas they can work on as a starting point and how to get from start to finish? Absolutely.
We start from where the next 30 days, and then we look at the near term, which would be 1 to 6 months from now. And then we look at 1 to 5 years from now, and that end result. What is that end result that they would like to see in their overarching vision for their life? Those things that touch them emotionally that they're motivated toward, and also just their natural world. What are those things that niggle them every day that maybe stop them from even thinking about that higher goal, that higher vision.
So overcoming those hurdles and those obstacles and naysayers.
Absolutely. Naysayer is definitely a word I use because I talk about the three areas that will, try to prevent you from reaching your extreme dream. And naysayers, people outside of yourself are, one of those culprits that will try to stop you every time from reaching that dream.
And what are the other culprits?
The other culprits are maybe your own self-talk can be on your turf. That you're saying, oh no, that's impossible. I can't do that. But that third area is actually you just, hearing from, maybe somebody that, is along the way, maybe someone that's a friend, somebody that's close to you, Ken. And I call that friendly fire is what I call it. Somebody who thinks they're helping you, and they're actually talking you out of the dream of your life.
Okay. Now, on the flip side of that, is it important to assemble, rather than naysayers, yaysayers, let's say a board of advisors, people to support you on your journey to carry out this project?
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. I call them the A-team, not to be confused with the TV show from the 80s, but your accountability team. I help people all over the world create a cabinet or a board for what I call You Incorporated. If you thought of yourself as a business company, how would you choose those people? And I help people get the right people on their group of advisors that is a right fit for them.
And if let's say their goal is to create a little fashion business, a jewelry business, to write a book, what are some little steps that they can take and you encourage them to take to move closer to that goal?
You know what?
To carry it out. We talked about protecting the idea, but just to build it and get it to the finish line.
Yeah, well, I try to always get people, Ken, to start at the top. I was told by my first boss outside of college that I should always start at the top. And he said, what's the worst thing that can happen, Char? They can say no. He said, but what if they say yes? So you mentioned the fashion industry, Ken. Well, I have a friend who's a major fashion, designer that is internationally known. And I decided to see if I could go have lunch with him and one of the top models in the world, top male models in the world at the time. And my boss let me have the afternoon off to go do it because this fashion designer also happened to be a top environmentalist. And I was working for the Environment Agency at the same time. So I leveraged that idea and asked my boss if I could go see this guy and have lunch with him. And I met the designer and he asked me to have lunch with him. And that began a lifelong friendship to this day. And I highly recommend starting at the top. They could say no, listeners, but what if they say yes? And we're hoping and praying they do say yes.
And many projects, because the world of business has changed so much over the years, many projects can kind of be done on your own with resources around you. If you have a business idea, if you want to write a book, you want to find a manufacturer, sometimes you can find those things on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're thinking, maybe I'm not quite sure what I want to do, snail mail, listeners, is a wonderful idea. You know why? Because so few people do it nowadays. Snail mail, and by that I mean not email, but handwriting a note is such a wonderful way to open doors. No one does it. And let me say to you, once they respond to you, and if they say, like my fashion designer did, yes, come have lunch with me. If they say that to you, the next thing you must do is a handwritten thank you note, because no one does that anymore.
Yes, thank you notes, or even a phone call never hurts. Yeah. And it's so rarely done, or an email. And also people can start their ideas they can self-publish. They can meet with other people who self-publish, maybe have a reading or a book sale or a donation or a program at a library or a coffee house or some venue. And if they're creative. They can possibly sell their products at a craft fair or a flea market, start on a very small scale, and build it from there.
I totally agree. And because we're in such a tech-friendly world today, also think about looking at specific groups online that really are for various people in different creative industries. There are people that, yes, create jewelry. One of my clients started her own jewelry company from scratch. No one knew that she was a secret, closeted silver and goldsmith. And we kind of teased that out of her, and she created a company that went global and is now teaching all over the world how to create her style of jewelry. And, you can find people in your neighborhood, just like Ken said, but now we have tech. Put out feelers out there. Take a look at the groups that are out there and see if you can join, and then start learning, start asking questions. There are never any stupid questions because we're all here to learn.
And there are all kinds of websites out there that you can use to sell your products as with relatively small cost.
That's right. That's exactly right. Think about Etsy and all these other places that out there that really are geared toward the homegrown artist that is yet to be discovered. In the United Kingdom, they have something called Not on the High Street, meaning it's not in a mall, it's not in the big stores, and it is a website just for people that are unknown artists and artisans.
Okay. I'd like to remind our listeners that you're listening to Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. My guest is Charlynne Bodie, and she is an entrepreneur, as you've heard, and she's also a life coach, and she's also the author of a book. So just tell us about your book.
My book, Ken, is called True Grid, and that's grid, Grid. And I always say to people, it takes true grit, Grit for Tom, to do true grid, because to follow your most lofty dreams is something that can be done, and yet you have to really have perseverance to do it. So many people have been told no along the way with things that seem out of reach. And I'm here to tell you, I was one of those people. I was told I would never get to the White House. I was told I would never get to Hollywood. And I was able to do both dreams. And I just want to encourage your listeners, dreams still come true, especially extreme dreams.
And your book will help them accomplish their dream.
Absolutely. The vision grid that I alluded to earlier is on the inside of that book. It walks you through my entire seminar without me being there, because books can go where I can't go. So I want to encourage you to grab that. It's at Amazon, Kindle, and we just recorded it for Audible for those that don't want to read it, but they want to hear me speaking it to them.
And I'm sure you did a very good job with that. And what is your website where people can also find out more information about the book or about many of your ideas for success?
Well, you know what? My ministry, my charitable website, because I just moved back to the States, is still up. And it's just my first name, Charlynne.com. And that's CHARLYNNE.com. And we're working on just a coaching only site even now. I just moved back to the States, so bear with us, folks. But you can still get a hold of me at Charlynne@charlynne.com, or just by going to my website to learn more.
And just a few caveats. We've talked about how to generate ideas. How, again, can you prevent people from stealing your ideas?
Yeah, and I would say it depends on what your idea is. If it's a work of art, then I would highly recommend an art lawyer that just deals with that. I have a friend who's a lawyer here in Denver. He only handles art, whereas my two lawyers had different parts of the entertainment industry, and even Jim, who does music, also does books. Those are his two passions. He handles book law as well as music law, but that's two different types of intellectual property. So there's that, because that's something you've thought up yourself, which is why we call it intellectual property. Is that right, Ken?
And you might want to discuss your ideas with a lawyer or one of these groups there that help entrepreneurs before you discuss it with all your friends, because you never know who might steal your idea.
Yeah, I always say, Ken, while you're thinking it, somebody else is going to do it. So absolutely write down and date what you've written and date it, and then give it to a lawyer and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. Do you think this is viable? And if so, can we pursue this and find out what those costs are going to be? As Ken said earlier, some lawyers do a certain amount of charitable or artsy work for the arts world pro bono, meaning it's for free. But then there are other lawyers that are going to say, wow, Char, like with my sister and me, to create a whole company, that's going to cost us some serious time, Char, and it's going to cost you X amount of dollars to do that. So we had those funds saved up and ready to go so that our lawyers walked away very happy with getting paid out of the chute to work together to create a production company that handled books, music, TV, and film projects.
And the lawyer also might be able to suggest an agent who would work with you on protecting and marketing your idea per percentage of the revenue. And that might be a win-win situation for both of you, but you want to get a lawyer's advice on who that could be and what a fair division of the revenue would be.
I agree with that. That is very, very true. I did some modeling in Europe, and I did have an agent, and every agent is going to have a certain percentage of that fee. So when they get paid, of course, you get paid. Sometimes it's 15%, sometimes it's 20% in the acting and the modeling world. But yes, I would absolutely talk to a lawyer about what seems fair, so you know that you're getting a fair shake out of what funds actually belong to you at the end of the day.
And it's one thing to give a percentage. You just want to be careful about shelling out tens of thousands of dollars to someone who's going to market them, and it may be not the best investment. You want to consult with a lawyer about the wisdom of that investment and what other options for marketing and pursuing your products you have without paying all the expenses.
I agree. I totally agree. I love agents, but we love agents that are fair and that would not steal from you as the artist. So everything Ken just said to you, I absolutely agree with.
And keep in mind that everything you've heard has just been presented as information only and not legal advice, and you should get legal advice from your own lawyer or professional. I'd like to thank our guest, Charlynne Bodie, and please join us next week for another program on Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, Long Island, New York. And you can listen to this program and many others at nccradio.org.